In the novel A Clockwork Orange, we follow the young protagonist, Alex, at the age of 15. The only interest he has is to cause havoc, to inflict pain. That is the only thing that gives him joy. Every night, him and his friends go on a rampage through the city. Fueled by drugs, they inflict pain on other people. What you're hearing now is a sound clip from the movie A Clockwork Orange, based closely on this novel. Here you can hear him singing in the rain while raping a woman and beating down her husband in their own home. They feel no remorse, only joy.
Hello. I'm gathered here with four young men, Julius, Ahmed, William, and Axel today. And we're going to discuss the novel A Clockwork Orange, written by Anthony Burgess. And Ahmed, could you please give me a small resume of the book?
Yes.
Lovely.
In the book, we follow the young man Alex, who's 15 years old, and his gang, who find pleasure in committing crimes and violence. And after a conflict with his gang, Alex is backstabbed and he ends up going to prison. And after 2 years, he has the opportunity to undergo or participate in an experiment which brainwashes him into feeling sick every time he commits violence or crime. And after he comes out of prison, he starts to feel worse and he can't live with the brainwashing, so he attempts to commit suicide. And he goes to the hospital where they remove this thing in his brain, which brainwashes him, and he ends up committing violence and crime again, but has a reunion with an old friend who helps Alex understand that what he wants in life is to have a family and not to find pleasure in committing crime and violence.
Thank you, Ahmed, for the short resume. And William, could you please give us a short insight on the themes of the novel? Thank you.
Damn. Yeah, thank you guys. Damn, you're so talkative. You barely get a word in. But yeah, the themes of Clockwork Orange. I would say, apart from dystopia, we have this, I don't know if you can really call it a kind of theme, but it's like ultra violence. The way that the whole environment of the story is the streets, is like the slums where people just kind of live peacefully until these boys come rolling around and beating people up and raping and whatnot. So I would say, apart from the dystopian theme, you would also say that there's a kind of ultra violence.
In the story, Alex is not the only young man committing crimes. Other young people are also committing crimes and doing drugs. So in this dystopian society, crimes and drugs among teenagers are normalized. And we see that as Alex has this rivaling group of teenagers. And Axel, could you please explain to me what a dystopian society means?
Yes, dystopian society means when the book was written, it is what what we fear the future holds. Just like in 1984, where the book is about the fear of surveillance in the future.
Yes, and throughout the book, we get this really clear sight on how the setting in society.
Yeah, it plays a huge role.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And could you please explain or get a bit in depth about how this comes in the book, Julius?
Yeah, sure. So this book kind of differentiates itself from other dystopian novels, as it is not a totalitarian regime that is the dystopian element of the text. It is the animalistic and barbaric acts of violence committed by the young people. Also, that people, as we see, it is a common thing to do drugs. We see that there are these shops or
Milk bars.
milk bars, yeah, where people drink this milk that is laced with all kinds of drugs that sends people to a completely different place where people try to get away from this world. So
And
there,
also, I feel that we see Alex and other young people drinking milk infused with drugs, which also gives this kind of feeling that they're still young drinking milk.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's like it's a strange contrast between the really severe drug use and the milk. It's quite interesting, and it's also interesting to watch how people try to escape from the reality that they are in by taking so much drugs, so many drugs. Um, we can also see this mindset of the young people painted in the language that they're using, Natsat, as they're called, as they're calling their own language. It's a slang, but it's almost its own language, as so many words also derive from Russian, the Russian language, even though this is set in England. For example, a chipuka means nonsense. This is derived from Russian. And we also see something like babushka, meaning woman, derived from Russia. This really says a lot about the time that the book was written in.
Also, while reading the book, or I at least, caught on to that it's only the young people using this
Yeah,
slang.
Yeah. We see when Alex is in prison, the doctors who are doing the experiment can't understand what he's saying when he speaks to them, so he has to speak normal English.
yeah.
Um,
So it's almost like a rebellion that as a form of to rebel against their parents and the older part of the population that they use this language.
Um, and also, when we see Alex talking, he speaks in this very different way from the others. He says, "Oh, my brethren," and so on, which really makes us feel that he tries to be someone he isn't.
Yeah,
mm,
yeah.
Seeing that he's only 15 and uses the language of like really
17.
old language, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, when he turns 17 in prison, he start after going to church in there, he starts being more biblical and talking in this preacher way when he describes
Yeah.
himself and the
Yeah,
people he's talking
and he
to.
really dwells in the Bible, but he
Mm.
only focuses on the sex and the violent aspect of the Bible, which combined with his use of words may suggest that the narrator fears that a Russian influence at this time, the Cold War, might it might influence the younger part of the population into throwing away religion and all of the values that it holds the society.
And
Yeah.
turn barbaric.
Yes, and Ahmed, in your resume, you talk about Alex getting brainwashed, and we come to find out that it's called Ludovico's technique. And could you please explain to me what the technique is and why it might not be ethically correct?
Yes. The we actually don't know what exactly causes the brainwashing itself. The only thing we know is how it's done, which is Alex getting injected with a sedative before watching movies that involve some of the actions he has made in his past, such as violence and crimes. And this all creates a bad experience for Alex, in which he doesn't want to associate himself with the actions, and he gets a sick feeling every time he hears or sees something that has to do with it.
You also chose a quote before we got into the podcast, and the quote says, "Choice rumbled the rich deep gullus. He has no real choice, hasn't he? Self-interest, fear of physical pain, drove him into that grotesque act of self-abasement."
Yeah. Um, Basically, the quote is used to to talk about whether it's ethically correct or not. And the quote says that Alex, after he comes out of prison, actually doesn't have any free will. He can't choose to be a good human. And they argument later that in the book that part of being a good human is choosing to be a good person, which Alex has no opportunity to fulfill himself.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting debate to have, whether it is ethically correct to have a murderer like Alex actually is, brainwashed into being a changed human being who can function in society, who is unable to commit any sort of violence. So, what do you think? Is it ethically defensible, or is it completely immoral?
I'd say it's immoral, because Alex doesn't even have the opportunity to change himself or learn from his past experiences. He only learns to be a good human and find pleasure in other things than crime and violence when he speaks to this person at the end, who helps him realize that there's other pleasures in life than what he's known up until now.
Yes,
Exactly. We also see that all of his freedom has been taken away from him, and he doesn't get the opportunity to change in any way. And we also see that leads to him eventually trying to kill himself.
yeah, and that's quite interesting, because it's not the brainwash that actually saves him. It's the fact that he's confronted with one of his old friends who has actually transformed his life. Through the relations, he changes himself. And of course, when talking about this treatment, it's of course a bit of a slippery slope, and this is also a big part of the dystopian society, that the government experiments with brainwashing people.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. Tune in next week, where we will be discussing My Little Pony and the Satanism that is seen and embodied in these ponies. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.